Well, hey there, it's Catherine from CatherinePooler.com. What happens when you have line art images and you don't feel like taking the time to color them in, but you still want to use them? Well, we're going to look at 5 different ideas of ways to use these stamps without coloring them in. And here's a look at some of the products we're going to use in this video: full-size ink pads, mini ink pads, patterned paper, die cuts, and embossing powder. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, while you're here, I hope you'll hit that subscribe button below the video and hit the bell as well so you'll be notified of new videos and when we go live. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is stamp these beautiful flower clusters with black ink. This is our midnight ink. It's archival, it's waterproof, it's safe for Copics, and it's a really nice dark black stamping ink. So we're just stamping these in black on white, and you could leave it as is, just add on a sentiment or maybe a layer, maybe a vellum circle with a sentiment on it, or just a die cut sentiment, and it will be a beautiful card. So there's actually, I didn't finish this card off that way, but that is a great idea for you with stamps like this. This stamp set is called Lucky Me Floral. We also have Cottage, Corsage, and One in a Million Mom. They all have this fantastic bouquet of flowers as a centerpiece of the stamp set. So for this first technique that I'm going to do, I can either use a blender pen or a water brush. The blender pen is more like a marker. You use it to dip into your ink and use it like a marker. And then the water brush is like a paintbrush. So it has a paintbrush bristle end, and then you can twist off the barrel, fill it with water, and then squeeze, and that water will come out through the bristle. So it's a really nice tool to work with. You may have to practice with it to get the hang of how much water comes out of that brush. You can also just add some water into your color palette. So you saw I took my clear acrylic block, I took my Flirty Fuchsia ink pad and just dabbed it on top there to transfer the ink, and that made a nice little watercolor palette for me. And then my brush was a little bit drier than I wanted, so you see that first area that I went in was really dark Flirty Fuchsia, and I wanted a lighter color wash on the background here. So I added a little bit more water to that color palette on my clear acrylic block, and then I was able to work a little bit more here. Now, I was inspired by a card made by Sarah Gruber, one of our brand ambassadors, and I'll show it to you in a little bit, but she did just basically a really nice outline around all of the flowers, and I thought it looked really cool. So I decided to start experimenting with it, and I love this Flirty Fuchsia color, and I thought it was really fun and unique to do it on the background. So I started out really a lot more heavy than I intended at the beginning, right at that first one, and then I went lighter with it, and I was doing just that outline all the way around. And then at this point I decided, I'm just going to go ahead and color in the whole background here. So I started coloring in, and I'm just going back and forth to my little clear acrylic block color palette there, adding more ink and color to my brush, and then just blending it on the background. Now for this, I used just regular cardstock, and if you've watched my videos before, I talk about this all the time, but when you're using water and doing watercoloring, you may want to use watercolor paper. It's going to take a lot more water, and it's much more forgiving than regular cardstock. If you're quick and don't add a ton of water, you're going to be okay, but you may not be able to get the blend that you're looking for that you would get with watercolor paper. As you saw the very first time my paintbrush hit the paper there, it got a really dark spot on it, and I couldn't really blend it out too much just because I couldn't add a lot of water there. But I'm just playing back and forth with my color and just adding more on, and when I add more water to my little palette of color there, you can see it gets lighter. So just kind of experiment with your shading and have fun with it. In the end, I really liked how this came out. And then after my entire background was filled in, I decided to do something a little crazy because this is not watercolor cardstock. I sprayed down the whole sheet of cardstock because I wanted it to be more blended, and I was having trouble getting the lighter shade and the blending that I wanted. So I took a risk. I sprayed down the whole thing with my water mister, and then I dabbed it up in some spots. This really gave me a nice lighter color wash background, and my cardstock survived it pretty well, so I was really happy about that. And then I wanted to try again. So I wanted to see what I could get with a blender pen and a really light blue colored ink. So this is Hot Tub. And I'm using a piece of scratch paper to just kind of scribble off a little bit and test out to see my concentration of color, which is what I should have done with my first card with that Flirty Fuchsia. Note to self, after stamping for more than 15 years, I still make mistakes all the time. So it's not about being perfect. It's about the process and having fun and just really enjoying yourself. So yeah, so let's try this out. Hot Tub with the blender pen, and I'm really sticking close to the outline of those flowers. And I'm just gonna go around all of the images here and just give that light bluish gray color just on the outline. I think it looks really pretty. I was really happy with the results here. And by the end here, you may notice that my technique changed just a little bit. Instead of just going straight around the image, I started kind of flicking out from the black outline to the kind of outside the outline. Does that make sense? But you can see how I kind of was flicking that color away from the flowers. And I thought that kind of gave it a nice soft fading into white from blue look. And I love the soft subtle shading there. And then I wanted to add some glitter. So I took my two-way glue pen and I just added it in the center of the flowers. And then I'm just sprinkling on glass slipper glitter, which is a really gorgeous clear sparkling glitter. It's a definite must, a staple for your stash. I use it all the time. And it just gives a little bit of a bling and looks really, really pretty. I remember the very first time that I ever saw glitter like this on a card. I remember just staring at it and thinking, oh my goodness, how did she do this? It looks so awesome. And then when I figured out how easy it was to do, I was like, oh, and adding this to all of my cards. So I'm just gonna add it to my card again and just top it off, and then be sure to give a good hard flick on the back of your layer there, and that will get off a lot of that excess glitter so that it's not coming off all over the place. Now, if you're adverse to glitter like this, you may want to go easy on it because it is going to get on you. I do come home at the end of the day with glitter on me most days, so just a warning. And then I'm just going to take this fun Just Because die cut. I have one that I colored with Hot Tub ink and then embossed. I thought it kind of blended into the background too much, so I thought that black was really nice contrast there. So here is the one that Sarah made. Isn't it cool? I think it looks awesome. And then there are mine. So totally inspired by Sarah. Thank you so much for your inspiration. And then on this one, I just added a bunch of sequins, and that was it. So what do you think? Between these three, do you have a favorite? Leave a comment below and let me know. So for the next 4 cards, I think there's 4, yeah, I'm going to start with the same base. This time I am using watercolor cardstock, and I'm stamping the floral bouquet in Wow embossing ink, and then I'm doing white embossing powder. One of these background pieces or technique pieces, I did use clear embossing powder. So 1 has clear embossing powder and 3 have white embossing powder. And you're going to be able to see the difference between those when I get moving on these. So just heat up your images with your heat tool. The white and the clear will look powdery. And then you can see, just turn it in the light. And as you see it turn shiny, then you know it's embossed. And then when you add color over the top, that white embossing powder that is nice and shiny now will resist the color of ink and stay white. So really cool technique. And it's one of my favorites. You guys have probably seen me do it a ton. So I'm using Heavy Doodle memo tape, and I'm just going to mask off part of my card. And I'm using Mint to Be ink and my blender brushes. So you can see as I blend the ink onto my background, that white embossed image is resisting the ink and it's staying white. I'm going a little heavier right up against that memo tape and then fading off as I go toward the edge of the card. And then the magic when you peel that back and you have a really nice crisp line, and it just is a really cool look. So now I'm turning the tape over to the fresh side that doesn't have any ink on it, because if I blend over another color over what I already did, it may pull any ink that is still a little bit damp and muddy my beautiful Sweet 16 color. So I'm doing two pieces so I can have a really thin line there, and I'm just sponging and ink blending over that Sweet 16. When I peel back this tape, I love the crisp edge it leaves. So I'm going to continue moving on down, and I thought it would be a fun look to do different widths of the stripes. So some of my stripes will be thin, some will be thicker, some will have more room between them. And I thought it was a really fun look. The color choice for this palette is really springy and fresh. So here is Melon Ice. I already used the Mint to Be and Sweet 16. I'm also going to pull in Coral Cabana, and It's a Girl. When I was finished with this card, I actually wasn't really sure about it. I didn't think I loved it that much. I thought it was, I don't know, I wasn't totally happy with my placement of the stripes, and I wasn't sure about the color palette. So then I made the other card that I actually showed here first, and then Erica came into my office and she went a little crazy over this card, and I was like, what? So I decided to keep it in the video, and I just did a simple "You Are Loved" die cut sentiment, and I embossed this with clear embossing powder in black cardstock. And I think I really love this card now. So I don't know. I guess the moral of my story is don't doubt yourself. Even if you think it's not your best piece of artwork ever and you're not super excited about it, you never know who's going to like it. So thank you, Erica, for encouraging me, because now I really think this card is different and cool. So here is another Technique piece. This is the one that I use the clear embossing powder with, and I don't know if you can tell, but there is a difference between using the white embossing powder and the clear. So the white is just going to really pop a lot more. The clear just looks a little bit more subtle. And I thought it was really fun to take my mini ink pads and just do stripes on the cardstock. So the stripes are the width of the ink pad, and I just swiped them right across that watercolor cardstock, and then I grabbed my mister bottle and spritzed it. I got a little bit of running of colors between, but not too much, especially when you have something like that Sweet 16 and the Mint to Be. You don't want those colors running into each other too much because they'll make brown. If you're worried about that, make sure you use colors that are next to each other on the rainbow or in a color wheel, because when they mix, they won't make brown. If the colors are across each other from the color wheel, you might have an issue. So I thought it would be really pretty to take these two die cuts, so this border die cut and this thanks, and do the border behind and then the thanks right on top. So this thanks is called Just Thanks. It is one of our Sursee subscription products, which also the Lucky Me Floral is also a Club Sursee product. If you're not a subscriber yet, I'll leave the link below in the product or the YouTube description here so you can go check it out. The basic is 2 stamp sets, and then the deluxe you also get 2 sets of dies. Sometimes we send a bonus set of dies. Sometimes we get carried away and excited and design a bunch of extra products. So sometimes our deluxe members get extra. But the thanks die and the Lucky Me Floral, both from that Club Sursee subscription. And then the border die, I'll link that below. It's a regular product item in the shop. And one thing I love about this border die is all the different geometric bits on it. You can just have the scallop border, you can have the scallop with the circle dots, you can have the cut off both of those on the top and bottom and just have that strip of the horizontal openings. It's really versatile. You can get a lot of different looks from it. So we'll just add this Technique panel right on top of that gorgeous watercolored emboss resist piece. And there is another idea for using your line art stamps without coloring. The next card, this one may be my favorite. I absolutely was thrilled with how it came out. So the first thing I'm going to do here is take the Sweet 16 ink pad and use my ink blending brush, and I'm just going over the flowers, just the main part of the flower. And then I'm going to take pixie dust and I'm going to concentrate a little bit more in the center there and darken those centers up and going out to light. So I'm just going to blend back and forth now here, filling in any areas that I felt like needed a little bit more ink. And then I was done and ready to go into melon ice for the leaves. And again, here's a time where you want to be sure to be careful not to mix the melon ice with the Sweet 16. So green and purple are going to mix and make kind of a brown. So I tried to go right up to the Sweet 16 with the melon ice and not really overlap too much. Next, I'm going to take my blender pen and the Coral Cabana ink pad, and I'm just going to color in the little white flowers. So there's a lot of embossed area here and not a lot of open space where the cardstock is. So I just colored over the top, and then I wiped the ink off of the white embossing. And then I felt like I was doing better if I kind of just dabbed that color in, because I was just trying to get it in the center of those flowers. And then I think this looks really great, but I can't help myself. I got to spritz some water on it, y'all. So I just did a light spritz of water over the top and then just let it sit for a minute and just let that water kind of make some little water droplet action going on here. And I'm hitting it with my heat tool. And Catherine Pooler inks are water reactive, so you get really gorgeous technique looks with your inks and water, and I can't help myself. I love, and it's kind of like a snowflake. You never get the same look twice. If you try, you're not going to get the same look. So just play and have fun. And then I'm using the this paper pack, and I am a big fan of the color palette here and that melon ice background chevron piece, and then this fun stripe. So I just did the melon ice on the background and then a little thin piece of that stripe just to kind of polish it off and tie all those colors in together. And I think it looks pretty spiffy. And to finish it off, all you need is a little sentiment. So I did white embossing on black cardstock, just trimmed it down, added a little foam tape on the back. I added a few Tinseltown sequins to finish it off, and I think the resulting card is really classy looking. I think the color palette is fantastic. I love this technique. I think there's such great texture, and I think it just came together really well. So what do you think? Are you inspired to use line art stamps on your next project? Leave me a note. Leave me a comment. Let me know which technique you are going to try out first. Are you going to try out doing a color wash over the background? Are you going to take a blender pen and trace around the outside of your images? Are you going to try some masked ink blended stripes? Or are you going to try the mini pad ink swiping? Or maybe you're going to do the blender brushes and the water spritzing on top. I can't wait to see your projects. Hashtag Catherine Pooler Designs so we can find you on social media. I really appreciate you being over here with me on YouTube, commenting and liking my videos and subscribing, and I will see you again soon.